Hello everybody, John Pio here, and I've been talking about my pinball collection for a while now, but I really haven't been able to get any videos out for you to show you what the pinball collection I have is. Until now, I'm going to start showing off some of these pinball machines, but I know a lot of my viewers are console game players, and I would bet that a good portion of my viewers have never even put their hands on a real, actual pinball machine. So I think it'd be in order to do a video on the anatomy of a pinball machine, basically what it's about, what it takes to own one, to play with one, to maintain one. And I can tell you, owning a pinball machine, you will have to dedicate many hours in maintenance, upkeep, keeping it all working. Things are constantly breaking. The fact that there's a heavy metal ball that is slamming onto plastic pieces, screws loosen up, bulbs go out, electronic parts just constantly needing repair and changing. A pinball machine is a big responsibility. It's a heavy investment. They are basically not cheap, and they're enormously large. You need to invest a lot of time, patience, and real estate to keep one of these machines. I have quite a few. I'm fortunate enough that I had the space, and it's a lot of work. So why would you do it? Why would you even mess with pinballs? Well, basically because the payoff is enormous. The thrill of a pinball machine is just fantastic. It can't be emulated. And then, yeah, there's pinball video games and there's pinball tables that have emulation programs that mimic the tables, but it's not the same. You can't emulate a pinball machine the way you can emulate a video game. A video game can be truly emulated where the system doesn't even know the difference that it's an arcade or an emulated system. A pinball machine is a physical, it has weight, it has substance, it has physics that are just incredible. Just a crooked floor could change the whole outcome of your game if it's not leveled the right way, if it's not pitched the right way. So the experience of a pinball machine is fantastic, and there are no two pinball machines alike. It's a wonderful hobby, and another fantastic thing about a pinball machine is if you're smart and you pick the right pinball machine, they appreciate in value and go up. Unlike video games that really don't appreciate because they can be so easily emulated, they don't necessarily go up, or they go up on a scale that's much slower than a pinball machine would. Some pinball machines, and we're talking about old pinball machines, some old pinball machines go for anywhere from $7,000 to $12,000. And new pinball machines off the assembly line generally go about $4,000. So you can see there's a great appreciation possible for a good pinball machine. And the hobby of pinball collecting is very strong, believe it or not. There is only one pinball company in the world still making machines. That's Stern. Other players are trying to come into the field, which would be great to see another pinball company open up its doors. But this video is to just show some of the parts and what makes a pinball game great. I'm basically going to show you just the overall. This is not a review on these machines. This is just an overview of the pinball machine system and what it is and what it's about. I'm going to quickly show you my Dungeons and Dragons pinball machine and compare it to some more modern machines, and I hope you enjoy this. Alright, let's do it. Here we have two of my favorite pinball games side by side. We have a 1987 Dungeons and Dragons on the left and a 1997, 10 years later, Medieval Madness to the right. These games couldn't be more different, though they both share a fantasy theme. The Dungeons and Dragons one is probably the first pinball game I ever received. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is the first game I've gotten. Let's actually get serious and take a look at some of the parts on these machines. What we're looking at here is the two main things that catch your eyes. It's the art, better known as the translights. On the left, the Dungeons and Dragons one is a very famous picture that Larry Elmore, a painter for the TSR company that used to do all the D&D kind of novels and book covers, very famous, and I just love that picture. Taking a close-up of it, this was actually on the Dungeons and Dragons famous red box, which back in the 80s was the starter set you would get, and it uses the old TSR Dungeons and Dragons logo and font. Really, really, really nice. You'll also notice on the top here, this is a topper. Only a few pinball games actually have a topper, and what this is, it'll flash, and there's a dragon, a very fearsome looking dragon in the middle there that will light up when you do the right thing on the pinball. If the game has a topper, it's very hard to find it after years and years. They work just fine without the toppers, but if you can get one with a topper, it's great. This particular game has 4 LCD displays for the score, and of course this is the Playfield, a very colorful playfield with lots of lights to catch your attention and to direct you how to play and keep score. Fantastic game. Now on the side, those 2 aluminum rails, those are the side rails and act as tracks to hold the playfield's glass intact. And this is just a fun game. Now Medieval Madness's translight's a bit different because there's many bulbs behind that will light up different sections of the translight to reflect what's happening in the game as you're playing. And on the bottom here is something called a DMD, which stands for Dot Matrix Display. This was a big advancement over the LCDs because they can now animate special things that were happening to convey what was going on the playfield, plus keep score and do all kinds of really pretty things. Most of the time the colors of the DMD were orange or sometimes red. Now back to the Dungeons and Dragons game. This is the coin door and the plunger. Standard plunger, everyone knows how this works. It's got a spring and you could just direct how hard you want to hit it depending how far you pull back on it. In contrast, Medieval Madness uses a digital one that's powered by a switch. You just push the button and it just fires the ball onto the playfield. Now I'm going to open up the coin door on the Dungeons and Dragons machine and take a look inside. There are the coin mechs that would accept coins, quarters, tokens, whatever. And it's always wise to have the manual for a pinball machine. This is the original manual that came with the game. But the good news is if you do get a pinball machine, most manuals are easily gotten off the internet. Now again, this game was put out in 1987. So the settings on the machine are controlled by this special keypad. You would have to look up the codes that are in the manual to change whatever function you needed in the game. For instance, to put it to free play, or to change the bonuses, or how many balls you'll get to play. The modern machines don't have to use that because they use the DMD to display it. You'll also see some extra plastic pieces, which is good to have because these things break very easily. So whenever you can see these things, or if you find them on an auction house, it's good to pick it up. Very clean inside. It's important to keep it clean. You don't need garbage or refuse or dust balls smoking and catching fire. Now, if you ever heard the term tilt in reference to a pinball machine, this is it. It's the act of knocking the pinball machine to try to make the ball go a particular way. We don't want you to do that. It's cheating. So what they have is this thing, and if you're familiar with the board game Operation, if this metal touches anything as it rocks in the pendulum and swings, it'll tilt the machine, thus turning it off at the worst, losing your game, or it'll give you a warning the first time and maybe turn it off the second time. That's what tilting's all about. Now here, this lever will control the lock bar. The lock bar is this metal bar on top that keeps the glass in place. Moving that lever releases the lock bar. We'll put it to the side. Now these cards are not the original cards. I made these myself. Basically this card tells you some of the statistics of the game, who made it, who programmed it, and on this side it has some of the rules of the game. The original ones were just plain paper, and I'm of the type of persuasion that likes to modify games. I know most purists would have a problem with that, but I have no problem just adding little flares and touches. Now, back to the glass. Now that the lock bar is removed, the glass just slides right down. If you just carefully pull it down, it should have no problem. The glass is tempered glass as opposed to plate glass. There is a difference. Tempered glass is much, much stronger, and should it break, and it can break, it'll break into a million billion little tiny shards. Pretty safe. It's messy, but definitely safer than plate glass, which would break in great big pieces that are incredibly sharp and incredibly dangerous. Generally speaking, the Translight will be locked on its own accord, so we're going to just lift this up and take it out so you can see what's behind the head. This is the pinball head, which has most of the brains. Now, the head is usually removable, or it can lower onto the playfield for shipping. And this particular game has a regular incandescent bulb in the center. Modern games use fluorescent, so it's not so hot. One incandescent bulb and some silver reflective backing to really make the Translight shine. And you can see how complicated the boards are. This is the sound board and the ROM chips that control the sound and all the logic. There's a great big power transformer there. And as much as this looks like crazy wiring, this is incredibly light. Modern games have much more stuff crammed in there, and you can see the 4 display LCDs, and that's inside the head. So let's lift up the playfield and see what's going on underneath. Generally speaking, after the glass is up, they just haul up, carefully lift it. There are different methods that usually prop up the playfield. This one is kind of like an old Studebaker. You just gotta find the rod and put it in the right spot, making sure not to touch any electronics, obviously, because you'll get a nasty short. And you can work underneath it. It's not the most comfortable position to work, but there you have it. And just take a look at that bird's nest of wires, and this is really well put together. But imagine trying to have to trace a short circuit. You've got all kinds of relays and wires and bulbs and resistors and you name it. So a general knowledge of electronics is needed for this. And of course you got to be careful because a lot of these things carry quite a pack of voltage, and you don't want to get shocked. That wouldn't feel good at all. So always use caution working around a pinball machine and unplug it if you need to do work on it. Here's some of the parts you can expect to use. These are some silicone bulb covers that do a quick change of the color of the bulb light. It's a quick and easy way to do it rather than buying the colored bulbs. And they actually look pretty good. Some leg bolts. These are what hold the 4 legs to the wood body. These glide pads are really cool to put under the feet of the pinball machine so you can slide it around your room. Not so good if you have carpet though. And of course the good old pinball balls. 1 inch and 1/16. This is actually like a porcelain kind of ball. It's not made out of metal. And some gold balls. All kinds of balls. Now here are the buttons. These buttons are very different than arcade machine buttons. They basically just push a switch that would be on the inside. Different setup than an arcade button. And you're going to need lots and lots and lots of fuses, all different kinds of fuses. Various parts, battery holders, solder, wire, bridge rectifiers. And then of course here are the colored bulbs I was talking about. And I personally like the silicone slip covers better because the color is much brighter, but nowadays even these bulbs can be replaced with LEDs. There are some optic switches which basically are infrared. There is a transceiver and a receiver across from each other. Ball will pass through it and detect it, and so it's a switch without physically touching the ball. Pretty cool. Here's some more various bulbs. There's so many different bulb sizes, so you'll need tons of them depending on which machine you're working on. Here are the shooter tips for the plunger. We have black and beige, all aesthetics that are exactly the same. Micro switches that you'll need for the ball to roll over ramps and points, and leaf switches which are used on targets. It basically goes screwed underneath the playfield out through a hole. The ball will hit this part and make a little contact, and of course will give you the points. The gap has to be perfect, otherwise it won't work properly. More bulbs, pray tell. Bulb holders and nut screws and washers. Lots and lots of parts. This is just a small sample of what you'll need to keep your pinball in top working order. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. By no means is that the complete analysis of a pinball machine. That's just scratching the surface. Modern pinball machines are so much more complicated, and I hope in the next coming few days I'll be able to get some gameplay footage of all these machines and share that with you soon. So until then, take care, happy gaming.